get started. I think we have one more person to coming in. Terrific. I know we'll have some people who are coming in as we're going, so we'll go ahead and get started because I want to give our panelists as much room and runway as possible to get their very important thoughts and feelings out there on this topic. So let me say good morning to everyone to this important discussions that make golf your passion, creating an inclusive environment for golfers with disabilities. Welcome. My name is Michael Williams. I am a journalist working with a number of outlets, including ESPN, Sports Illustrated. I do a lot of really wonderful work with the great people at the National Golf Course Owners Association. And I'm also the founder of Cyrano Consulting, which is an organization that helps build the emotional intelligence and build equitable outcomes for organizations within their organization and helps them have that same impact outside their organizations. And lastly, I am very honored to be a co-chair of the Education and Skills Development Work Group of the Make Golf Your Thing Golf Industry Initiative, which is designed to grow the game of golf. And that committee is actually your host here this morning. I am simply representing a lot of great people doing a lot of good work in the golf industry. It's my pleasure to do so. One of the goals of Make Golf Your Thing is obviously to make golf more welcoming and accessible for all. And that's why today's discussion is so very relevant. Because it is all about making the game accessible and welcoming for all constituencies. And often when we talk about making golf welcoming, we neglect people with disabilities. It's an egregious oversight. And I think this group of very talented and dedicated people will help us understand how we can stop doing that and make golf more accessible for everyone. Joining us today, I'm going to give just an introduction by name and title. Of course, they have very, very long and distinguished resumes, but I'm going to just give name and title for the sake of time. Dr. Amanda Clue, Director, if you may raise your hand when I call your name, Dr. Amanda Clue, Director of Inclusive Recreation at the National Inclusion Project. We also have Dave Barton, a PGA member and the Executive Director of the National Alliance for Accessible Golf. Welcome. We have David Windsor, also a PGA member, who's the Adaptive Golf Director at the Georgia State Golf Association. And joining us soon, if he hasn't joined us already, will be Jordan Thomas, who's the founder of the Jordan Thomas Foundation. We're looking forward to having him in. I think he may be having some technical issues, so we'll be welcoming him in shortly. But panelists, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so pleased to have you here.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I see some familiar names, a few faces, so can't wait to hear what we have. Outstanding.
So as I said, I know that you guys have done a lot in your careers and with your current organizations. Where I'd like to start is with you. I'm a big fan of the, I'll call it the elevator pitch. Some people don't like that term, but I'm old, so I still use it. So the elevator pitch, I'd like each of you to give your elevator pitch for yourself, your organization, and what you do with that organization, maybe your mission and vision. Just take a minute to do that. I know a minute is difficult for all that you do, all the good work that you do, and we'll have plenty of time during the course of the conversation to go more into it. We could just start off with a brief description to familiarize yourselves to our audience. Amanda, I'll start with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As in the introduction, I am Amanda Clue. I'm the Director of Inclusive Recreation at the National Inclusion Project. We lovingly call ourselves NIP. And we are an education and training organization. We're a nonprofit who provides education, professional development, resources, and support for recreation, leisure, and sport programs. We're also a national accrediting body to accredit programs as being fully inclusive of children and families and individuals with disabilities so that they can partake in play.
Outstanding. Dave, how you going next? We'll go alphabetical from here. Dave?
Dave Barton, I guess, or Dave with Dave Barton. All right. Good morning, Dave.
My bad. My bad. Dave Barton.
Didn't want to cut off Dave Windsor. Good morning, Michael. Dave Barton, the Executive Director for the National Alliance for Accessible Golf. I started this position earlier in the year. Very appreciative of Andrew and Laura and Make Golf Your Thing with the opportunity to participate today. Our alliance is a nonprofit established in 2001 with the mission of really just increasing the participation of individuals with disabilities in the game of golf. And we do that through education, providing resources to the range of golf industry organizations and programs. And we've got a modest grant program as well that we're excited about. So good morning, everyone.
Outstanding. And with that, not other Dave, the additional Dave. How about that?
There you go. The other Dave. Hi, everyone. Yeah, David Windsor, PGA member, and I'm the adaptive golf director here with the Georgia State Golf Association, and also with the Adaptive Golf Association that really launched my start 23 years ago in this world of adaptive golf. And so currently here in the state of Georgia, we have 11 recurring monthly programs. And that has been really started since 2015. We started with one, but then with the resources and sort of leveraging some of those local contacts, which I'm always willing to share to help other communities grow. We have been very successful in growing our locations, the consistency and the frequency of our adaptive golf clinics. And so we have a number of skill sets from the professionals, the PGA, LPGA backgrounds, to those that we've made dangerous enough to help others get access to the game, which we know is a very sought after move right now.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for those introductions. Again, I'll give you plenty of time coming up to talk a little bit more about what your organizations do in the context of the questions we're going to ask. As we start, just a couple of other requests and some information for our audience. Again, if you would please mute yourselves and turn off your camera so that we can preserve bandwidth. We make sure that we don't have jittery or shaky pictures. So I don't know how that works with this. So please mute yourselves and turn off your cameras. That would be great. Also, we're going to have some opportunity to ask questions at the end. So if you would please just put your questions into the chat, we will log those questions and then we will take them as they come at the end of the conversation. So again, conversations, please type into the chat. We're logging and noting those, and we'll get to those at the end of the discussion. So with that, let's launch into it. When I have these conversations about complex and sensitive issues, I like to start with definitions because the enemy of success is misunderstanding, right? So what I'd like to do is to start with some definitions from each of you. I'd like to get each of your thoughts on the definition of some basic terms, including the ones I like to start with are just the term accessible, just the most basic term, accessible, and then inclusion and adaptive, because I think these are terms in my discussions with you and talking and preparing for this day. Those seem to be key terms for understanding the work that you do and how you can move forward. So again, in the spirit of ladies first, Amanda, I'll start with you and let the rest of the panel chime in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you'll have to switch the order eventually so that everyone else has a chance to get theirs in too, because so I don't suck up all the air in the room. I would like to tackle the difference between access and inclusion. So when we talk about accessibility, it does focus in on providing access, that entry point, typically a physical entry point to an activity. So it is providing that open door to the opportunity, the experience, the play, etc. Whereas inclusion is the mindset. It's about belonging, it's welcoming, it's about the experience. So access is foundational, but that's only step one, whereas inclusion is experiential, and that involves accommodation, supports, connection, community, instruction, etc., the whole gamut. So they thrive together and they depend on each other, but they're two very different things.
Okay, interesting. I'll go Dave Windsor. Your thoughts on that?
So you're going to allow me to follow up on the most well-articulated panelist here.
I'll go ahead and just mute now,
No, these are great points to touch on. And, I'm happy to give my perspective here when it comes to like the access and inclusion. I learned pretty quick, like I had my own intimidations when that physical therapist brought a group out to my golf course down in Sarasota, Florida in 1999. And so it was the access at the point of a golf course operator was okay. I guess it wasn't really a barrier. I didn't have any issue bringing someone out, but it was that first initial thought of, okay, you have someone with different impairments, or they're in a chair. How are they going to access the golf course? And then how is that going to not interfere with my daily activities and my rounds of golf, pace of play, and the proficiency? So it did take some time for me to overcome that and see that through education and through practice, there are certain strategies that can really take up the pace of play and make it work. And then with the inclusion part, when that therapist, when that physical therapist was bringing people out, it included everyone, except it was during the day. So, it would, prevent the youth from coming out. So, back in the early days, a good friend, Steve Jubb with the PGA Foundation and the grant process to help with, with kids on the autistic spectrum, we started rolling out programs, and eventually we would have Saturday programs that would include them, so that older generation, the adults, some of our veterans, they were there at the same time as we were running some of our youth programming. And so with the inclusion now, it's, geez, I guess I haven't really been hung up on it. I've just, give credit to my mom. I guess we just try to include everybody we can, because the spirit of the game is truly for everyone. And then on that last aspect of adapting, I mean, we're constantly doing that. And there's always ways to improve. I mean, each clinic that I'm attending, just recently or out in Phoenix and working with Augusta Ranch golf course, and our vice president of the PGA, Don Ray, he's a co-owner of the golf course, and he's always had, a most accessible facility. And he has said it, before, that, we are the first responders to the game, all of us out there and that are involved in golf. And we have to do what we can to adapt however needed to involve and include everybody.
Yeah, I love that first responder analogy. I love that first responder analogy. That's a great analogy, and how you're at the really at the point of play, with the public. You're really interacting with the public. Dave, I'll go to you and ask you, like, for your definitions, and also to define the community that we're talking about. When we're talking about this group of people with accessibility, what is it like in terms of that group who are playing golf now, and what's the potential for the numbers that we're talking about in terms of accessible golf?
Sure. Well, following up on what Amanda said, to me, inclusion is absolutely a byproduct of access. I kind of believe that, in order to have an inclusive environment, you first have to be able to get there physically. I do believe there are cultural barriers that are somewhat access related with respect to a golf club or facility's view of welcoming individuals, and then that feeds into creating that inclusive environment. And I think the most important part of that inclusive piece is the outreach and external communication and the message that the club sends to the surrounding community of golfers with disabilities, that they are welcome to play here. And that can be done in a range of ways, whether it's a successful website, whether it's messaging. And to Dave Windsor's point, inclusion is not just, hey, come on out and play, and here's all your other, disabled friends. Inclusion is being part of just that community, disabled or not, working with and playing with the community as a whole, together in a round of golf per se. Mm-hmm. The community itself is very broad. There's a large disabled population in the United States, range of disabilities, adults and kids of all different types, whether it's intellectual, neurological, physically related, sight, sensory, hearing, et cetera. So it's large. I believe it was a 2018 study by the NGF where there's at least 6 million golfers that have disabilities that used to play golf that no longer do. And, I ask, why is that? Was it access? Was it just a limitation where they could no longer play? If so, how can we help in that area? So it's an open opportunity to create a lot more new golfers, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. I see it, Mandy, you're shaking your head. Some other stats on that?
For sure. So our specialty and my passion, my focus are youth and working with children, and getting children and youth to explore the excitement and the beauty and the benefits of sport and recreation and athletics and play. And we have a responsibility as a community and as a society to make sure that those opportunities are inclusive, because kids need them to stay healthy and stay well and to learn better and move better lifelong. And if we know that, there are 26% of the adult population in the United States alone who have a variety of disabilities, and 1 out of every 5 child in the United States has a disability. And again, we're talking beyond physical, all different categories of strength and need. We have to invite them into our play spaces. We have to have not only access to the game, but the inclusive instruction that teaches them the game and provide those opportunities, because that's the future of our business, that's the future of the sport, and that's the future of who it is that we are as a community.
I totally agree with that. I think it was Mike Wan, the USGA CEO, who said that if you look at the 12-year-olds in this country, if you look at the 12-year-old demographic, you'll see where the demographic of the entire country is going to be in the future. What the 12-year-olds are doing is what we'll all be doing, what will be needed. And gentlemen, whoever wants to chime in first, so I guess I'll go with you, Dave Windsor. How would you see when we talk about youth golf? Has there been a recognition of that very basic fact that making youth golf accessible means making golf overall successful in the future?
Yeah, I wanted to first, yes, I totally agree with the numbers that Dave Barton had shared. Those numbers exist, and I just believe we haven't seen them sort of coming through as much, to other, I guess, golf shops and whatnot, because they just feel that population doesn't feel like they're accepted quite yet. Of course, that number, I think, is that we're moving the needle on that. And then, as Dr. Manna said, it takes an invite. And so this is an invitation sport. And so if you don't have anything in place for them to feel like, hey, this is something that, I'm going to be welcome to, such as a monthly established adaptive golf community clinic, where they know that they're going to have folks, trained coaches, volunteers, the right equipment, and they're going to be welcomed. And so that's where I like to think that, I want to keep sharing those types of resources to help others open up those outlets. And then in terms of the youth adaptive golf, I mean, sorry, Michael.
No, please go ahead.
Was I think back at the, the L's for Autism movement and the things that they've done for that population, the 1 in 5 with, various disabilities or on the spectrum. And that is still a world untapped. And really, we're doing what we can here. And there's more that's going to be done in the state of Georgia with the resources that have been given. Just so grateful for the sponsors and for the junior support. And I have a colleague, I believe, that's on the call here, Jonathan Snyder, up in Chicago with the United States Golf Alliance, Adaptive Golf Alliance. And he has been the leader of youth adaptive golf all around Chicagoland, working with coaches inside the schools when it comes to the adaptive PE coaches and taking them from inside a gymnasium to a clinic to the course. And so we work, together with a lot of the inquiries that come in on a junior golf basis.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. I want to start with a really high level conversation. I was hoping to have Jordan. I want to ask my co-host, is Jordan, somebody can send me a text. Is Jordan Thomas in somebody let me know when Jordan gets here. If you can ping me when he is.
He's not been able to make it yet, Michael.
Not yet. Okay, just checking. Just a second. I want to give him an opportunity to chime in when he gets here. Give him plenty of space too. So just a little bit about me, my background. So my father was one of the people who helped start the EEO division across the federal government. So, things about inclusion and diversity and accessibility, these were our dinner table conversation when I was growing up. And this was a long time ago. And even since then, we've had the American Disabilities Act. And for a lot of people, they may wonder, well, why are we even having this conversation? Because we have the American Disabilities Act. Isn't accessibility guaranteed by federal law? And if it isn't, can someone please explain to me how it's working that we even have to have this conversation when we have something like the ADA that's out there? David Spartan, I'll start with you, please.
You want me to jump in on that one first?
Yes,
certainly. The ADA was established in 1990, and it really at that particular time was, not specifically related to golf courses and golf facilities and things of that nature. And that evolved several years later, where they, added some addendums that addressed it. And, true enough, the information is out there. There's some differences regarding the application of the ADA, and I won't get into a large government publication discussion because that's a 5-day conference, not a 1-hour conference,
Right.
but it can be complicated. The ADA, the consultants they have there do a pretty good job of answering the phone and helping folks work through these questions. But whether it's a public course or a private course, there are differences with regard to what is or is not required. There are also not necessarily differences, but the ways in which the Department of Justice will choose to enforce are dependent on many, many, many things. And there is a recognition that golf courses and facilities, from a financial perspective, just can't go all in at the same time, all in at once to make it work. So there are options for golf courses to do this at a level that can be affordable, regardless of it being the right thing to do in the law. There are ways for them to do these things and to get the ball rolling without complicating it too much.
Okay, and Amanda, I throw the same question to you. I mean, isn't it the law, or are there exceptions? Are there state exceptions and that sort of thing? Federal versus state versus local. How does it work that this isn't just mandated by code?
Mandate is an interesting word. Let me go ahead and throw in the caveat there that become really emotional about this, because this is not only what I do professionally and I'm passionate about professionally, but I'm also an individual with a disability who predates ADA. So I've seen the world from both sides, and it's been life-changing and career-changing for what it is that has offered to individuals like me and individuals like my kids with disabilities. But ADA spends a lot of time talking about what it is that public places and spaces won't discriminate against. And doesn't necessarily talk a lot about what it is that programs will do and what it is that they can do to include. So to move beyond that physical access and the criteria talk about providing reasonable accommodations. That sort of low-hanging fruit stuff. It's we'll do what we need to get by to comply. And that's a great starting point, but that's all it is a starting point. It's compliance. And then when we think beyond compliance and beyond mandate to what it is that we simply should be doing, because it's 2022 and we have the technology, the knowledge, and the ability to really make inclusive changes to our places, spaces, and experiences. There's a lot of room to grow. Not to discredit where it is that we've come from, but when we look beyond and think, oh my goodness, that was 1990, it is 2022, and I can walk down the street right now and encounter a recreation facility that is not built for me. And so there's some definite challenges that still exist there. And let's also remind everyone too that there are 100 high-tech ways that you can advance your ADA compliance, but there are also 1,000 low-tech and no-tech ways that you can do it also. You just need to have that awareness and that commitment to doing so.
We're going to get to that cookbook a little bit later and in the program. We'll definitely get some of those ideas. I want those to come out. Dave Windsor, before I move on to another question, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that too, sort of that legal aspect of this whole question.
And I'll make it brief. When Dr. Amanda spoke of the mandate, just to make everyone aware, and I think I know a number of folks that are visiting with us that are aware of this. But in terms of the like the Department of Justice, when it comes to our accessible golf cars, there was a 2008, I guess you would call that the mandate, where they advised all of the military golf courses that were associated, or all the military installations with a golf course, to have 2 of the accessible golf cars, the single rider golf cars that many of us have become known to. So a lot of them had, different brands. But in 2008, the programs, the education, that awareness, this, more or less this movement that we're in now, wasn't there. And those carts just sat in the cart barn, unfortunately. Now things are starting to really materialize. And it's like, hey, now we have to get these carts replaced because, they pretty much, just rotted away. So that's just an important thing. And then obviously there was a case of, Marriott Golf and allowing access. And so, their golf facilities had to get the single rider car. So more and more of that access is out there. But again, those are going to be used infrequently unless programs are sort of intact. And then when it comes to more of the ADA compliances, my go-to is the one expert that I know, and she's the advisor to the USGA, and that's Joan Stein. And she is the ADA specialist. And Dave's nodding his head. So if anyone has a question, she's definitely the go-to resource.
Outstanding. Amanda, I'm going to go back to you. When I talk to audiences about diversity, equity, and inclusion, in my consulting practice, one of the lines that makes people sort of smile, nod their head is that, and coming from a family of preachers, like to say that diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not your ticket to heaven, it's your ticket to success. There are certainly ethical and moral reasons to make these changes and make these types of thought processes available and the norm within an organization, but there's measurable numbers that show you that organizations that are diverse and truly inclusive are more successful. And I know you work with more verticals than golf. So are there those types of measurable outcomes that let people know that, again, being accessible is not ticket to heaven, ticket to success?
Oh, absolutely. We've seen registrations and programs, enrollments in programs skyrocket when the community is aware that you are meeting inclusivity standards and you do have inclusive supports in place, because we're already there as a community of disabled adults and children and families. We just often don't know where to go or don't have the place to go. So when we do hear of something, we'll travel. We will go there to be able to take part in those programs. We want more local programs to support us, and we're not coming alone. I mean, we don't exist in isolation. And so, kids with disabilities are going to bring their family members. I'm going to bring my family, my friends, my colleagues. And so I love that idea of when you commit to this because it's the right thing, it's also mutually beneficial emotionally, socially, and financially to the organizations who commit to moving forward on it.
Mm-hmm. Dave Barton, I'll go to you. I know you're working with golf in this way. What kind of what's been more effective for you when talking to organizations? If you talk about it in a carrot and stick paradigm, is it the carrot of increased market share, increased involvement, status in the community, or is it the stick of compliance and potential penalty?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've operated my share of golf courses back in the day, and I will tell you, very rarely did any decision get made without a focus on what it did to the bottom line. I mean, it's a business, right? And so even when I was running a junior program in general, a lot of our motive was to help these kids learn to play golf, but it was also a recognition that their parents come along and hang out in the clubhouse while the kids are playing golf, and maybe those parents don't play golf and they'll want to start playing golf. And so I think the majority of owners and operators think that way regarding it's not the right thing to do. It's just like, we're looking for people to play golf at our facility. And I think more are welcoming than they think. They just don't know how to actively kind of send that message out that would encourage individuals with disabilities to play. I don't know many folks in this business that are like, nope, we don't want you here. Now, there might be a few out there, but I think in the end, most of them, and what we're trying to do is to help educate them on how to conduct better, again, outreach to the surrounding community of what they offer, and that what we offer is here for everyone, right? And that includes individuals with disabilities. Certainly doesn't hurt to have a program there. And I think that's what I would love to hear from Jordan about, because when you mentioned the comment earlier about the 12-year-old demographic and what that means to the future population of who's golfing or doing whatever activities. When it comes to, access, a lot of these kids don't have access to the devices they need to maybe help them walk. Maybe it's a prosthetic leg or an arm, or maybe they need extra help because of their intellectual neurological disability. So helping kids get access to programs at a younger age, like golf or whatever the things that Amanda offers many programs as well, that tees them up for, young adult and adult life to keep on participating and keep on playing. So I'm hopeful that in, several years, we'll just see the byproduct of a lot of these things that have been going on long before I got here, but are now kind of taking a nice upswing.
Outstanding. Dave Wizard, I'm going to go to you because we've spent about half of our time now talking about definitions and challenges and legal problems and sort of the infrastructure to this whole issue. So let's get down to some nuts and bolts, practical talk about how to implement this and how to get golf courses more accessible. And I see some of the questions that are coming in about, asking questions about programming, whether it comes to equipment or instruction and that sort of thing. There's a lot that goes into this when a course makes this decision. But give me an idea of what the process is for a golf course owner or operator to say, I want to be more accessible. What should they begin to think about? Where should they go for tools and resources to talk to? Is there an assessment process? You can see me sort of noodling it through in my own mind. And I'm sure if someone who decides to make this a decision, they have a lot more questions than I do right now. So where do you start when you start thinking about being more accessible as an owner operator?
Well, I would say Dave Barton, right? He and the National Alliance of Accessible Golf. I mean, they have a great resource page, and I'll let him elaborate on it with the golf course owners toolkit. I don't have it in front of me, but I know that there's a whole list. There might not be one that's in front of the other, but there's definitely an outline of some things for all those considerations to be most accommodating. I guess it's the reasonable accommodations that you have to begin with and you have to be ready for. Mm-hmm. But if someone says, "Hey, we want to take and not just put our toe in the water, we want to jump in," that's where myself, and I'm surrounded by some other great resources that we can certainly help them establish a program. You maybe reach out locally to a local physical therapist. Everyone has Google's at their fingertips, and most likely you'll find a physical therapist out there in their community that has had some golf training, thanks to the TPI, the Titleist Performance Institute, and to combine them with maybe their local teaching professional or someone else, and start out small and do a few things. And you're going to learn from those participants coming out, hey, these steps are quite steep. Is there another way to approach the practice area, or looking at different curb issues, and kind of grow into it?
And Amanda, I'll go to you with that same question. You can look at it from facilities, making facilities accessible and available. Also, there's the people aspect of it. How do you connect with people in this community, make it feel welcome? Even as basic as using the right terminology. I always find with these things, there's a certain amount of instruction and education that needs to go with the people who are going to be implementing this. Where do you start when you're talking
about? Definitely education and staff training and building that awareness and understanding among your staff and the pros at your course and the facilities managers to build that infrastructure that you need internally to be able to support this good work. NIP also has a list of national standards for recreation programs in general that help programs see what to do and how to do it to be more inclusive across a variety of different domains. But I think one of the things that we often forget is welcoming and leaning on the community that we're serving to help inform us, and inviting your community members who have disabilities, who may be golfers or may be interested in golf or haven't yet explored golf, to come and help you do some of the action research that you need to do through town hall meetings, focus groups, panels, etc. Partner with your local schools and special education departments, your PE teachers, your adaptive PE teachers, your coaches, because man, when we do this right, it makes us better players and better coaches and better educators, because if you can coach golf and support the game of golf for golfers who need to do things differently, it helps us discover different strategies and tools and ways to do it too, because it can really, really boost your way to how you're going to innovate during your game. So rely on others. There's a community of knowledge out there. We often ignore it because we're afraid and think we should know better, or we've been doing the wrong thing, or we don't want to draw attention, but embrace it, man.
Embrace it. I love that's a
Michael?
slogan right there. Embrace it, man. It's a t-shirt right there.
Michael, if I can piggyback just briefly on what David said, and we certainly appreciate the reference to our resources. And, again, that's primarily why we exist as a nonprofit, is to assemble as many of these as we can and share them with whoever needs them. And we've actually got beyond the toolkits, we've got starting a program checklist. I mean, and it's pretty black and white on the things you need to be thinking about and doing, as you start a program, because it's great to have a great idea and be motivated. But if you want to have a program, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. And a lot of it has to do with fundraising and your ability to be able to sustain your program after you start it. So, and there's also a checklist on there where anybody can take it. The ADA puts it out. It's a very user-friendly golf-specific checklist where, really literally in less than an hour and a half, you can walk around your golf course and your buildings and do a quick assessment and kind of get a feeling of, hey, how accessible is my property from a physical standpoint? And so I would start with that. And then once you get those things assembled, then you can kind of build. And then definitely you want to reach out and draw upon experts like Amanda, who's on our education committee, and David, who's on our advisory board, who are in the trenches with these programs on a daily basis, right? And gain some knowledge from them or others in your area who have done it before, because we've all made mistakes when we've done these things in the past, and there's a lot of good lessons learned out there.
Interesting. And I just want to point out the fact that we have an extremely lively conversation going on in the meeting chat, where people are exchanging not only questions, comments, information, resources. So this is what we wanted today. I just want to say that, which is what we wanted, is like an exchange of information, exchange of ideas, a realization that there are more people that are out there who care about this issue than I hope than people who don't. And to have this concentration of this effort here in this one place just does my heart good. So I'm just glad to see what we're getting to, what people are talking about in the chat. A couple more things. One of the things I also believe is that empathy is one of the things that creates change. Empathy is like the real superpower, in this real universe, not the Marvel universe. Empathy is the superpower, and it does change things. And a group that has really been so powerful and effective in instilling and inspiring empathy has been the veterans community when it comes to disabilities. How do we find ways? Are we finding ways to take the lessons of that extremely effective messaging that's been done around the disabilities of veterans and let everybody know, because that it's not just veterans that we're talking about. There's a broader community to talk about, but also just getting that same sort of empathy that can be generated and should be felt, and empowering the overall effort. Amanda, I'll go to you first.
Thank you again. I always appreciate that first ask. Thank you. I think it's important to recognize that empathy is rooted in value, right? And it's valuing and seeing and honoring who each of us are for who we are, not for who we aren't, not for what it is that we can't do, not for how it is that we're limited, but what it is that we do have to offer. And then sort of reflecting that among ourselves as human beings. And one of the things that I think that the efforts in our disabled veterans community and adaptive sports that are attuned to supporting that community have done for all of us across adaptive and inclusive sport is increase the visibility and the awareness of what that honor and value means, and how it is that we can leverage that and maximize that to be able to bring our community together to support each other. And I think that we need to sort of spread the wealth and broadening the understanding of what disabilities are, and the wide variety and the huge scope of how it is that disabilities impact daily life, sport life, et cetera, because it's not going to be something that is going to always be visible or physical or seen. It can simply be on how it is that someone's experiencing a particular situation. We may never know what's going on behind someone else's curtain. No, nobody wants to know what's going on behind mine. I tell you. But recognizing that it starts with that interaction, just one-on-one between two people, and that honor and value of the individual.
I love that word honor, the honor in it is the honorable thing to do. I love that. It's unbelievable. You know, it's such a broad topic. There's so much to say, and we're already getting close to time, but I wouldn't want to end the conversation without talking about some of the, and I used the word success before, some of the successful programs that are out there, things that you've seen that represent success. And I know that literally nobody's perfect. I don't think there's a program that we can say, well, here is somebody who's doing everything right. But I know that every story starts at the beginning, and sometimes success and progress, are synonyms. So Dave Barton, I'll start with you. Can you point to any programs where you've seen people come to a realization, implement something, and make a measurable change that you can point to and say, well, here's some folks who have done it, who are trying to do it right?
Sure. First of all, I'm not going to mention a program. There's so many that are doing great things out there. So I'd be remiss if I don't apologize in advance if I don't mention a particular program, because there's so many out there trying to do the right thing, which is fantastic. In my limited time here, we've certainly had the opportunity to, work with Special Olympics, who are a large organization, have been around for a long time, and they do some amazing things. Of course, David is connected with multiple programs around the country, and his background, his experience with successful programs. And he's one of the key reasons many of these programs are as successful as they are, because of his programming experience and guidance. There's a program up in Ohio called The Turn, which is a, all-in sort of facility that's purpose-built for individuals with disabilities, but it's supported by the local community. So it's a very inclusive environment, and some days they shut it down for clinics and lessons. But other than that, it's a community sort of event. I don't know who all's on this presentation, but I did see that Tracy Hupko popped in, and Tracy is the new executive director for the I Got This Foundation out in Arizona. And of course, we all know Amy Bockerstedt's shot at the Phoenix Open a few years ago when she parred the par 3, and they're doing some really great things with their program, and also thinking more on a national scale regarding how to help other programs with how to instruct individuals with, the range of disabilities. And so that would be my short list off the top of my head, and I'll defer to Dave because I know he's got a few in his hip pocket as well.
Yeah, Dave Windsor, I do that. I want you to get your list out there, and then I want anybody to talk about the U.S. Adaptive Open, which is something that got a great deal of attention earlier this year. Dave, I'll let you go with your list, and if you want to talk about the Adaptive Open, or maybe everybody wants to talk about that later.
Golly, yes. Same thing. There are so many phenomenal programs. Just a couple that are sort of in my region that I get to see quite a bit about. Back in 2014, we helped get something going at Paris Island with Steve Giamona. And now their group is called the Adaptive Golf Experience. And again, there is just one example of several that offer that consistent, that frequent, every month, every third Saturday outlet out at Paris Island. They have a process to get people through the the Marine base gate and provide that access. So he does a phenomenal job, he and his team. You have the Rich O'Brien out there, the sleepless man himself, who's always providing access. And you're talking about the empathy. You're talking about folks with more really high spine injuries that really counted themselves out at one point or another. And he himself, is one that has used the game to recovery. And so I think, he brings it in with a capital E, and he's helping folks with those higher spine injuries, get into the stand-up carts and be able to access the game. There's just another example out there on the East Coast. And then my friend Brandon Worley with Upstate Carolina Adaptive Golf. He came to one of my clinics helping a group of blind individuals in Marietta, Georgia back in 2016. And within 3 months, he established a nonprofit and started, putting the ground, the framework out there. And now he's all over the state of South Carolina and partnering with others and supporting some other growth. And so, a lot of times it's like I always like to say, it's the people before the project, and they're growing that community segment, and they're including, everyone from the youth to the veterans, to the civilian community. So
Outstanding.
kudos, you guys, if you're out there and on the board.
Amanda, your opportunity.
I of course want to echo everything that my colleagues and peers have been saying, but to really celebrate and hype up the Adaptive Open opportunity, I think it's really important that we recognize the value of the community and leisure and local course and local club programs and school programs and everything that we're doing to build this groundswell, which is really important because that's going to inform the future. But if we really want there to be adaptive and inclusive golf experiences, we have to focus in on those high-level elite sport and competitive sport opportunities like the Adaptive Open, because that gives the kids in the stream now somewhere to look toward and something to look, to. And that, I think, is really important. And what's so valuable about that opportunity and that experience is that we're not talking about adaptive golfers, yay.
Yeah.
It's not about sympathy. It's about, wow, we have some incredible athletes and extraordinary golfers who just happen to have disabilities that need a platform because they're that good. And we know that that's a part of our responsibility as an athletic community to highlight those skills in the same way that we would the expectations and the skills of individual golfers who do not have disabilities.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is so awesome about it.
Fantastic. I want to take a few minutes because I don't know if this is one of those Zoom calls that shuts down exactly on the hour. So I don't want to get out of here without getting a couple of questions in. So I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience and let you all field those. One of these, the first one I want to take is one of the reasons I was hoping we'd have Jordan here today because he spoke very passionately on one of our prep conversations about this subject. This is from Stephanie Ferguson. Who says, sometimes accessible spaces are not truly accessible for individuals. When utilizing a venue for a tournament, how should someone approach the host location if their accessible spaces are not truly accessible? I know Jordan spoke about that specifically. Whoever would like to take that one, if anyone who has raise your hand if you'd like to take that one and give a thought.
I'll jump in initially. I mean, you just gotta engage and establish the expectations and what we need here for this event to be successful. And personally, if it's something that can't be done, I might be thinking twice about why that particular venue might be chosen. There's got to be a willingness of the location to want to be a part of what's going on. And we recently, helped the NCAA get connected to Jonestown, to your point, Dave, because they've got events and they're looking at, how to take care of not only the participants, but all the spectators that are showing up. How many vehicles do you need to help individuals get around that need some mobility assistance, these sorts of things. And so the further in advance you have those conversations and the sooner you get on with them, the better you are.
And Amanda, you're a person with a disability, as you mentioned before. I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
So, of course, express and advocate, but it's exhausting. And it can also be really isolating. So I would recommend to first, do your research and investigate and learn about the venue, about the event, et cetera, to see what is available to you in terms of accessibility supports or opportunities. And then, don't let it slide. If you do face something that is creating a barrier for you or inhibiting or limiting your experience, tell people, because it might not be on their radar screen. If they have checked those compliance boxes, they may not be aware of where else they can improve. So use it as a learning opportunity and a teaching moment. It's a chance for all of us to grow together. And then depending on the response that you get from you expressing that would determine a next step. I'm sure, 99.9% of the time that information is well received as oh my gosh, what can we do now to be able to make this better, or tomorrow for tomorrow's experience, et cetera.
Okay, terrific. Before I ask that next question, I guess my producer, Chris Noble. Chris, are we gonna shut down exactly at 11? Because I want to time ourselves out, or do we have some extra runway? Or Andrew, somebody just ping me and let me know. Are we gonna shut down exactly at
As
11?
long as you want, Michael.
Okay, terrific, good. So we have a little.
I was
extra
wondering
runway.
if Andrew might have gotten a word from Jordan, because he just texted that he's trying to join. So I don't know if we might be able to get a Jordan Thomas cameo here before the top of the hour.
Yeah, David, nothing yet
No.
from him in the waiting room.
Okay.
Okay. Just another reason to have another discussion. Like you said, an hour is just barely scratching the surface. So these conversations will be continued, I'm sure.
And that is why I was just typing a moment, excuse me, and I just put on there for another adaptive golf development discussion for anyone interested in looking for ways to do some more in their community. I just put a little link into the chat if they can find, they can go to my website and they can go to training and they can see some way to register.
Right. And to let everyone know, we're going to send out, we're going to make available the contact information for all of our panelists, because there are going to be a lot of questions. There won't be time to get to all of the questions today. We do want to maybe have a few minutes extra, but we want to respect people's time, our panelists, as well as our guests. But we will have this conversation recorded and available, both sent to the registered participants. And I think it's going to be in the Make Golf Your Thing, our broader newsletter. It will go out, link and information and contact information for our panelists, so that you can get more information about how to work with them in greater detail. So we're not going to leave you hanging with this one conversation, I promise you. There was another question that came in about, see, I want to get to that question specifically because it was a good one. I'm scrolling because there are so many of them in here, so many good questions. Well, I'll throw a question out there to you, which is about, there was a question in there about adaptive kits, about the equipment that you need in terms of clubs. And we talked about carts previously, and maybe Velcro clubs, special grips, special length clubs, and that sort of thing. And forgive me, questioner, because I can't find your question in the scroll here. There's so many, but the general gist of the question was, what kind of equipment is required? Is there a basic kit that's required to start with your adaptive golf journey as an operator, and where can you go for it?
Well, I'll just say a couple of things there. Yeah, it is very convoluted when it comes to, hey, where do you go? Where do you get this? And a lot of times, you just have to be very resourceful between your Home Depots, between your Joann Fabrics. When it comes down to some gripping needs, there are some companies out there that have the glove with a loop. There's the powerglove.com. There's gloves that we make right here in Atlanta that have the full hand wrap. So we do a lot of custom kits here. So my colleague is the one of the custom fitters at a PGA Tour Superstore. And so of course, they're great supporters of our adaptive golf program through their stores across the country. Many of us have utilized those outlets when we can't be outdoors because of inclement weather. We're able to use some of that indoor space and still not have to cancel a program. But in terms of the equipment point, we do a lot of custom things there. So whether it be junior, kids, they're going to have the smaller grips. If you have to build them up, obviously, we have means to do so. The Ping group has done a tremendous job over the year. We've been consulting with them since maybe 2009 on their adaptive golf kit. And just recently, we're even enhancing that for the upper bilateral limb absence as a clinic that we collaborated on. So there's even more for those that are missing hands and arms to have a shoulder strap with a direct connection for a single club connection. And so they're swinging with one arm. So get ready, North American One Arm Golf Association. We're injecting some new players to your group. So we have a number of those things. I'd be happy to address that. I threw my website up there. So without any further delay, I see our man Jordan. So
well, let me please. I want to give a special introduction to our guide here. Jordan Thomas has entered the building. Jordan is the founder of the Jordan Thomas Foundation. We really look forward to having you, Jordan. Thank you for joining us with the program. So we got you in sort of right at the end. but I'm so glad you could join us. And we've been talking, had a very spirited discussion. You can just see, if you go through the chat, you can see how spirited and useful and practical and emotional, all the owls, have been here in the conversation, but so glad to join you to it. While you're here, I just want to throw a question out to you and start with you and let some of the others panelists answer as well, which is, we've been talking a lot about the legal side and some of the whys and wherefores when it comes to adaptive golf and accessible golf. But I want to talk about what people can do right now, because a lot of things, take some planning and some run up and some, it's just some long-term planning. But if someone said, I want to do something tomorrow, if they've been moved and touched by this conversation, said, I'd like to do something tomorrow, can you give a couple of things that people could do tomorrow to make their facilities more accessible and more welcoming to golfers with disabilities?
Sure, absolutely. And my sincere apologies and greetings from Tucson. I'm so sorry for my tardiness. And thank you for having this forum. I think by showing up today, that is a move in the right direction, right? And saying, hey, this matters and this is important to me. So just by default, by being here, that's an indication to the community that this is important. And I think for me, the most immediate thing is one of mindfulness, being aware and mindful of people's particular limitations and not necessarily feeling like modifications are required, but how can I go about making it a little bit more accessible? How can I think about maybe some challenges that some may face that I've never considered? And I'm guilty of that all the time. But just, I think, practicing some mindfulness around the facility and around golf and how certain challenges are presented to those of us with disabilities, but we so desperately want to be a part of the community of golf, right? And so I think anytime we can diversify and enhance and make more accessible and eliminate barriers to the game that we all love, I think we're all better off as a result.
Outstanding. I'll go to Dave Barton. You can think of a couple of things, because you've been a course operator, so you have that perspective. Have you seen or have you identified a couple of things that people can do that are just sort of, as Amanda said before, low-hanging fruit in terms of getting a better sense of accessibility?
Yeah, and Jordan, great to see you again. And I appreciate what you said. We briefly mentioned, just do something. It's better to go in some than not at all. Get the ball rolling, then you'll find the ball will have a little momentum that you might not expect would be there. And I spoke earlier about communication. So for me, that's kind of job one. And so take the step to have an accessible website, right? Everyone does not have a mobility disability. Okay. There's a lot of disabilities out there where, their first impression is going to be what they see at your website. And there are plenty of affordable solutions out there. We've got one, and I can certainly share that with anybody that's interested, but there's a ton of companies that do that out there affordably for a golf course, right? Have a statement that addresses, your environment, and whether it's called an accessibility statement or what you want to do it, say, hey, this is what we do. This is what our course does. And just basically share that. And we've got some templates for that we offer up, and courses can use them, steal them, copy them, poach them, adapt them, whatever they want to do to make them work for their particular facility, because every course is different regarding cart policies, pass, no pass, whatever. And so it's not one shot doesn't fit all. So I think if you could do those things, and really probably one of the three most important things beyond those other two is, and Amanda mentioned it earlier, is you've got to take the time to train your staff. And any high functioning staff from a customer service standpoint does get training at their golf course. If they're not, they should, right? And part of that training needs to simply be, how to communicate, with individuals with disabilities, because it's not rocket science. They're people. Like Amanda said, we're all just people. But there are subtleties in there on how you communicate to different individuals with regard to what their capabilities to understand you may be. There's an organization out there called disabilityn.org, which has a lot of great information about disability etiquette and communication. And so that's where I would start. If I was anybody, I would start there from some low hanging fruit.
I love that. Start with the people. I love that as a sort of foundational principle. We'll go to Dave Windsor, same question, a couple of things you think people can do immediately, and we'll finish with Amanda.
I'd go right back to, first base would be to reach out to, and Google local disability services. Look at what maybe some recreational therapists or what facilities are nearby. The physical therapists, if you're not in a metro area, look for the PTs. And there's even chiropractors that are going to be, inclined to golf. They might want to do some things, where they could host a little segment on the range, and that could be the spark.
Outstanding. Amanda?
I'm going to bring it back to the kid aspect and training youth golfers and the future golfers of America. Connect with families and the kids themselves who have disabilities, and ask the families, ask the parents, what would make this the break that you need? What can we do to make this a better experience, for your child? And ask the kids, have little focus groups with kids, man, they'd love it. Find out what you can do to better support their experience, and just stand back and be a good observer. Be aware, and as Jordan said, be mindful, so that you can see how people are interacting among and within your facility, within your community, with each other, within your space. Because if you take that time to really get that lens and that perspective, you're going to notice things that aren't quite clicking as well as you want them to.
And to add one more, I think that's so brilliant. And I think a big one for me is don't be afraid to ask questions. Right? Like when people ask me like, hey, what can I do to make the golf course more accessible for you with my physical disability? It says to me, it's an indication you've put some thought into this, and I'm appreciative of that.
I love that. Again, this is an extremely, important and meaningful conversation that we're having, and to have it in such a short period of time, only literally begins to scratch the surface of what needs to be done. I'm so appreciative of what you guys have done. But I do want to respect the time of both you as panelists and the guests. And I want people to feel like they plan their time for an hour are going to miss something if they don't do an hour and a half. So I want to tell all of our audience members that we're going to do everything I can to get, we will have this, as I said, recorded. We'll have a link to this recorded program, both sent to you directly as a registered participant. Also, it'll be available in the industry newsletter that goes out, the broader newsletter that our good friend Andrew Yeast puts out. We will also, I hope we can find a way to get the chat somehow copied or recorded, because I think there's so much good information in the chat. If you look at the chat now, Andrew is saying, giving you a link where you can get to more administration. I've seen a lot of questions asking for databases on everything from programming to equipment, where we can find carts, where we can find a database of courses that may have maybe especially friendly to the needs of people with disabilities. There's so many questions that are there. So we're going to try to find a way. And maybe if we can just, Chris Noble, if you can just like do a copy all, just select all and copy right now in the meeting chat. Maybe we can find a way to get that out there and organize it and get those questions out there. But I do want to close with having everyone, so we have it recorded here, give your information, your name of your organization, and your website, just so we have it in the conversation before we close. I'm going to start with you, Jordan, and before you give your contact information, everybody else got a chance to give a 1-minute description of their organization and what it does. So why don't you give your name, a little description of your organization, and then your contact information.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Jordan Thomas, and the founder of the Jordan Thomas Foundation, and we can be found at jordanthomasfoundation.org. That is more times than I've said Jordan Thomas in my entire life consecutively. That was a lot. Sorry about that. And we're an organization that's committed to providing prosthetic devices to kids in need. So if a family, kids outgrow their prosthetic devices once a year, maybe 18 months. So we support a child all the way until they reach adulthood. To have access to the prosthetic devices they desperately need to be active and to participate in the world. So whether that means play golf or play pickleball or swim or karate or hip hop dance. We don't care. Our mission is to provide kids with the opportunity to have their childhood.
That is awesome. That's just awesome. Thank you, Jordan. But you, Dave Windsor? Your
Hey there,
contact
yes, yeah, I'm back. David Windsor. My email is davidwindsorpga@gmail. With the Georgia State Golf Association's Adaptive Golf Program and the Adaptive Golf Association from our national outreach. And I also have my Adaptive Golf Academy, which was a link that I had shared earlier, where we set up a lot of coach and program development trainings and consultations. So please take a look and reach out at any time. Love to be a resource. And Michael, thank you. Panelists, great to see you, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Dave Barton. Thanks so much, Dave Windsor. Dave Barton.
Thanks, Michael. As you mentioned, certainly if your question didn't get answered, I know I speak for the other panelists, you can certainly email me with this information if your question didn't get answered. And if I don't know the answer, I know who to reach out to and I'll find it out for you. So don't go away unanswered. But Dave Barton, Executive Director with the National Alliance for Accessible Golf. Dave Barton at accessgolf.org. Our website is www.accessgolf.org, not surprisingly. And we've got our Golf Inclusion Monthly magazine about to go out here in a couple of days. So check it out, because we like to tell and talk about all these great stories and to get more awareness about what all these panelists and everybody around the country is doing. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Michael.
It was my pleasure, really. My pleasure. And we'll finish where we started with Amanda.
Well, thank you. Again, I am Amanda Clue. My email address is amandaclue@inclusionproject.org, and that's Clue, Kloo. And the National Inclusion Project website is www.inclusionproject.org. And I just want to, again, like everyone, say thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to my fellow panelists and hosts and everyone attending, because it's conversations like this that really facilitate change. So stay connected with us. Let's keep this discourse going, because they're really, man, the comments and questions in the chat really could be a whole nother hour on their own.
Absolutely. And I just can't resist saying, like, you can't do inclusion without Clue, right? Because
Hey, that's a new one. I like that. That's great.
I've been holding that in for an hour. So.
Yeah, I usually get the, do you have a clue? So I like this one much better.
That's what we do. And team, I will throw out there also that you may work with the National Golf Course Owners Association. I don't know that I don't know specifically the resources that are there for accessible golf, but I know for a fact from working with those people that if there isn't something there, if you listen closely in the distance, you'll hear the sound of them putting it together right now. It is an amazing organization for helping owners and operators get resources for the things they need to do, or directing you to the people who can. So I'll just throw that out there, ngcoa.org as another resource. Panelists, honestly, I could go on for hours with you, but that really is to be respectful all the time that we have. This has been, for me, and I'm sure for everybody in the audience, extremely educational and extremely inspirational. Again, if maybe all the panelists, as we say, someone could, we'll be sending out, I see this question, we'll be sending out all the emails to everyone. We'll be sending out your contact information to all the registered participants. So don't worry about that. We'll get that to you. But again, educational and inspirational at the highest level. Thank you all. Again, if your question wasn't answered, please get in contact with our panelists, and they'll, I'm sure, answer your questions or direct you to someone who can. I want to thank my work group co-chair, Laura Diaz, who really does all the heavy lifting for these things. I just get to sit around and talk to interesting people. She does all the heavy lifting. Thank her so much. Andrew Yeast, who's the director of industry engagement at the World Golf Foundation, all his work with this committee, this work group, and all of the work groups, the stellar stuff that we're doing with Make Golf Your Thing. Chris Noble, I guess, who would be our producer for the show for today, also a member of our committee, for his stellar organizational and technical skills. Could not do it without you. Certainly to each and every one of our panelists, Amanda, Dave, and Jordan, for all of not only your participation today, but for your passion and your involvement every single day. You are who I aspire to be. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And of course, thank you all for joining us today. I hope that you got as much out of this as I did. If you got a fraction of what I did, then I'm sure that you're completely edified and just ready to take this issue on and take it to the next level. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining. This is a first. There'll be more coming out of this work group in this committee. So stay tuned for more. Can't wait to see you. But with that, I'll say we're ending this one. So thank you again for attending. And on behalf of everyone who made this happen, we'll see you soon, hopefully in person next time. So for Make Golf Your Thing, I'm Michael Williams. Just have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.